Hey everybody, thanks for joining today's Lunch and Learn. Will is getting logged on as we speak. Thank you for your patience. If you want to go ahead and start getting your questions set up in the Q&A or in the chat, we will get those logged.
Hey, Caitlin, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Hey,
Oh,
no
wow.
problem.
Hey, everyone. So sorry about being late. Let me get my stuff up here. And we already have, okay, you got a chat here. Is that from someone who is
Yep,
here?
this one's from Frank.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so here, and then I will look at the question. Participants. And Frank, we've let you speak if you want to clarify or ask any questions about what I might be doing here, sir. All right, let me just see how to refresh a drop-down list on a form. We have a form that has a drop-down list. On the form, we also have a sub-dialog flow button to run a flow and add a record to the table used for our drop-down list. Once a new record has been added and the control has returned the original form, I see. Okay. So in this example, you have to make sure your flow has your form uses a data flow to run the drop-down list instead of to get the data passed in from the outside. So refreshable drop-down list. And I'll wing through a quick example here. So let me create a flow. And I'm going to put a form. New form. You can see my screen, right, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a drop-down list right there. And let me search for sub. And there's a sub dialog button, which I'll put here. And I'll use a regular button here. All right, now let me go create a data type. Let me save and exit this really quick. Okay, I'm gonna just create an entity really quickly. Called dropdown list test one. And it'll have a single property called string one. I need to get my local back into a clean state. Okay, and so back to the main flow here. So let's set that entity type on our drop-down list here. So the type is going to be, I'll just find it. I should be able to find it in recent here. DDL test one. Now list input source is either, I'm going to use an active form flow or a flow to run this. So I'm going to say data name, and display field is going to be entity name. And the list item data name will be list for down. And this will be selected drop down item. Okay. So now I'm going to create my sub dialog flow here. And in this flow, I'm going to add a quick form. This form is going to just have a single text box on it and a button here, and I'll name this thing will be called new entity name. And I will go to the change value path. But before I do that, I'm going to come to user defined types, entities, drop down list test one, and create. And the folder ID will be constant. Some of this is specific to entities. And then I'll do build data on my item here. And I'm going to come down to entity name and pass in the value from my text box, which is new entity name right there. Okay, new entity name, set that to ignore. That should be fine. Now I'm going to make an active form flow. That's going to populate my dropdown list. So active form flow, add, and this will be called run dropdown list. And I will click edit rule flow. And what I'm going to do is fetch entities here. And then I'm going to use form rules, set control value. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fetch my dropdown list test1 type. Sent. I'm going to fetch all of those things. And then I'm going to select my form control here, form data, combo box. That should give me item source and selected item. I'm going to hit ignore on selected item. In item source, I'm going to select from flow and select entity results. This should run and then populate my drop-down list. Should being the operative word there. I want to run it startup, and I want to trigger it to rerun on the click of the subflow button there. Just make this valid for now. Get rid of that. Get past that validation. Okay, let's just check to see if this is built right. And then I'm going to hit ignore on both of these. The difference here probably from what you might be doing, Frank, versus what I'm doing here is I'm not getting the value from the parent flow and passing it into the form. I'm having a flow run on the form itself. So if I run, let me go ahead and debug this flow now. It should load with an empty drop-down list. Okay, and then I can click sub dialog button and I can put in ASDF, come back. And that didn't work. So let me complete this. Let me rerun. I should have one item in my list now. There's ASDF. Okay. It triggers on the button click. Triggers on the button click, but my data change doesn't happen until after it runs. Sequence of events. From flow inputs, don't care about flow outputs. This is in an active form. What am I missing here? Find a way on to update. Need to trigger this. Change it to selection change and try again. Okay, so I have my one item in there. So it's getting in there. I just need to refresh that run. So maybe we have to do like a hidden something. This might be kind of dumb. We could do, let's try this. Let's put a checkbox here. Update drop-down list. This will work. I don't know if this is the best way to do this. Okay, and here we will do is in our sub dialog flow here. unchanged data. We're going to pass out a bool. Set it to true. Set that to a bool, excuse me. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this checkbox to trigger this thing. Set this to true all the time. So every time it runs, it's true. And then here, I'm going to copy this name, and I'm going to set the checkbox name to that special flow colon name. Then I'm going to come to my active form flow, and I'm going to add checkbox value changed as a trigger. So if I'm right, debug this. Okay, I can click sub dialog. I can put in a new item, that checkbox, and then there it's there. Okay, so then what I need to do is just hide that checkbox. I could come to view our behavior, and I could say initially visible false. I think if I rerun this, it should not show the checkbox. So there's my 3 items. Here's 4, boom. So what I had to do here is use a data flow or active form flow to populate the list. And then I needed the sub dialog to run a selection change function to update a value on the parent form. And then I used that checkbox that the sub dialog is passing data back to as a trigger to rerun that flow that populates this list. Those things combined together are what allow me to add an item to a drop-down list when I run a sub dialog flow over top of a form. Any questions about that? Okay. If you do, just please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A section. All right, we got a question here from Nancy. Hi, I want to get some ideas about creating some formatted help text. The idea is to have some help buttons that when a user selects the buttons system, has some help buttons that when the user selects the button system, it displays the formatted help information applicable to that help button. The formatted help text could be called from multiple forms. Nancy, we have you looked at our, let me let you talk. Have you looked at our, help text feature in the product at all?
Well, you're talking about like just where you put in for that, like where you can type some text down in there, like if you go down to a field or something.
Yeah, here, help message key.
Maybe I get, okay, maybe I don't know it enough yet. Okay.
This should be, so I can pick or create a brand new one. Help message key. So I would say like use this list to pick the XYZ. If I run this,
Okay.
you should be able to hover over the drop-down list and get that. Okay, should be in the operative word.
Is there, is it only just basic text that you could put in there, or could I get it, some of this stuff needs to have a little bit more help information to it.
Well, let's just see what this looks like first, and we could look at some alternatives here. I think this is help text, system data help.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could add a help key. The key is, I'll just call this DD drop down list help text one. One. Add a help key. So here it is, and I can edit this. I can set help text. Now here I can write formatted text in here.
Okay.
So if I wanted links and things, I might be able to insert a link.
Okay.
Let's see if this comes through. So go.
And can you make some
for more help?
Can you make something like that in bold and stuff like that so I can kind of see?
See, Okay. See if any of this comes through or not. Not sure that it will, but let's just try. All right, and then here I need to pick that help key I created. So pick the key. There's DD help text 1. Okay. Bug. Now I should be able to hover over. Okay, so it doesn't look like we give you any formatting. The formatting doesn't come through the help text. That's something we should absolutely get a DT in to correct. That if we should, that stuff should be able to come through. So if that's not working now, you might be, the other option could be to do something custom. You might do like you could do an image and then
Yeah, it's going to do like an image with that question mark.
And you could have this be so maybe let's just search for URL, open URL image button. So you could put this next to something. You could then put your URL here. And then, you know, of course, pick your question. You know, there's question. And then here, if we were to do this, now that'll let you go to Google, right? I could have them go to a separate site, but you want help text. And so if you wanted to fully control it, you might use a sub dialog image, kind of like what we did here for the bottom. You could set this back. Doesn't like that one, does it? What's different between the one I just did and that one? Weird. Well, let's just,
I know
I
what
guess
it is.
sub dialog buttons are behaving differently than URL buttons. But either way, you could control the grid size to fix that. Then you could pick a sub dialog flow here. You could then show a form, right? And create new form. Could do search for rich and do rich text display, and then put, you know, help text, then a button, and then in there, and then we could come to text merge HTML here. We could say, please do XYZ.
You think I could call that help text that you put in before?
You might be able to fetch it. Okay. Can you fetch help text?
Because I want to be able to get it. I want to be able to use it in various places instead of like.
You could definitely, if you can't fetch help text, you could just create your own database of help messages, like with a simple data structure. Unfortunately, my local's in a weird state where I can't search for stuff. So you might be able to search for help text objects. If not, you could create your own data structure for sure.
In the data structure, can I get it in formatted? Is there...
Yeah, you absolutely could. You can have rich text in the field for the data structure. Yes. Okay. And links and everything else. So that's something that you could do. What you might do is you might just have to you might call a subflow in your sub dialog, and you might have one subflow for all help text, and then you just pass in the ID of the help text message you want.
That's what I want to do. Yeah. And
then you could reuse the same subflow over and over again.
Yeah.
But in this way, then if you were to have this, then this gives you full control. If you debug this and then click on the ugly button, it's going to pop up another form. Oh, I didn't map my things in, where I could have another form show with all sorts of links and information. And yeah, that could absolutely pull from a data structure that you create and maintain. So it might be, we might create a simple data structure called help message manager. and we'll create a thing called help text. And we'll set the text length to max, so there's no limit. Then I guess I have to create one really quick. Let's create a help text message. User defined database structures. Help message manager, create. And we'll do build data, and help text will come to plain merge. And we'll say, please go to XYZ. This bold, helpful link here. Link. Save. Nice. Okay. My form, and in my sub dialog, fetch entities. I'm just gonna go to recent here and find that thing I just created, help something manager. Come on, help message manager. And I'm just gonna pass the first result in here. Results first. Of course, you need to like subflow this out and put an ID in, or have some code that you use to look it up yourself.
Right.
If I'm right, it should come, click here, and then there's your formatted text, and you have a link that you can control. Oops. So yeah, it looks like using sub dialogues and a custom data structure to hold your help message text is it can get you what you need. Any other questions about that, Nancy?
Okay, and it sounds like you'll put in a DT on that.
Yes, we will get a DTN about help text messages. Caitlin, can you own that for me, please? I can help you with that.
Okay.
If you could own getting that DTN for me, please. Okay, what's next here? Yeah, it's true. My example that I showed for Frank's issue would you would need to set the bool true or false based on its current value if you needed to do it multiple times. That is 100% true. Anybody else got, what other questions we have from everyone today? All right, question from Manal. Is there a way to update the fields of the form from corp object via scheduled job or on the workflow? Let me ask. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Manal. Can you help me understand that a little bit better?
Yes. So for example, we have like an accounts object or just like any corporate directory object, and it's the static form. Well, no, I know that. Like, for example, if I wanted to update the form from just a button, the fields, for example, if like employee information just getting updated by a button, like fetch entities or update selective entity, I try to use that in a workflow. So for example, whenever the requester, it's for example, the employee went to a different department, I had like but it wasn't updated on the form. So I created like a button which says update. And then I did the selective entity in the back end so it can like update, but it doesn't still gets updated, the object, the corporate directory object, or like an accounts.
Okay, so you added a custom action to the account object?
Just on the flow. So I'm getting the data from corporate directory, then I did the fetch entities, and then I have that form where I get all the employee information populated whenever the user edit and then save it. And then they
Okay.
come back like a week later. And I just have that update button so it can like update the record, because I know like I talked with decision support and they said like you can't really do that with already submitted, like already completed form. You can't change it unless if there's like an active form flow.
Hmm.
So I was wondering if there's like a way to do it, because I did the fetch entities as update selective entity. It didn't really did it.
Okay, it should work fine. I'm not sure I follow the example exactly. Let's just see, update count. So you're running a flow that's talking to your Active Directory server.
Yes.
Okay, and then it brings some data back.
Yes. So the user just goes in, they search an employee name, and then they save it. And then, for example, while that time period, if an employee gets promoted or if their information changes, for example, the form had the fields like business unit, RC, or different information, it gets updated when they move to a different department. It doesn't get updated because it's just a static form. So I created like another flow, like a user action where they go in the back end, they click on the on that update employee information, and then it has a button that just updates the employee. So it should show the new data, for example, like, oh, now it's 1 or 2.
Mhm.
And
And you're saving an account object specifically.
yes.
So like if you let me do save entities, I'm going to show a form. I'm going to use a save entities step. Okay, so I'm going to fetch accounts. Man, if I can, I need to account in here. All right, I'm going to fetch that thing I just created, help message manager. It just won't change based on the data type. Yeah, Anonymous is asking a good question. Is this information getting synced over from Active Directory today?
Yes, it's like the Active Directory gets updated like every day, pretty much at night. I mean, that's
your
like a
sync,
schedule.
and that Active Directory sync job doesn't pull this data over into decisions?
Well, it gets pulled in, but like
Okay.
since that form is already submitted, it's that information just kind of stores into it in the end user action. It doesn't get the form doesn't get updated automatically, the fields on the form,
So
unless
this
if you
is like
go
a
back.
form this is like a form and an assigned like an assigned form.
Not really. It's like, so user just goes in on a dashboard, says add employee. You add an employee. For example, I search my name. It populates all the information, and then you just save it. It's just literally saved there. And then from the end, they use it for like printing certificates and all other stuff. But then you go back, for example, a week later, the employee information is not updated because that thing was already submitted. It never like went through the change.
Are you okay, when you do that, do you actually run like a command to create the account?
No, I'm just like pulling the data from, we have like a corporate directory object that has all the information, and that's how I'm just putting it in the form. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's
You say, but
confusing.
you're saying you're adding an account. You
Um,
click a button on a dashboard and you add an account.
Yes.
And so does that actually create an account in decisions when you do that?
No, it's just the employee information already stored in that object, corporate directory. You're just searching an employee. They're already in there. So if, for example, I can search my name and it will populate already.
But you're searching in decisions accounts, or you're using the Active Directory module steps to query the Active Directory server.
Active Directory server.
Okay, so
corporate directory.
Okay, and then when you find that user, and then you click add, what do you do after you then you create a decisions account? Or you found them in Active Directory?
I just like we just have a process folder and then it just stores the data of that person. It's already in the, we're not creating decisions account though. Is
Mhm.
that what I have to do to fix it?
Well, I mean, is the thing what you have like the job that you run against Active Directory creates accounts for you, right? So
Mhm.
as new people show up in Active Directory, those people get added as accounts and decisions, right?
Yes.
But you have something. It sounds like the end result of your flow should be to create an actual account. Like, are you saving data in a flow execution extension attached to a process folder?
Yes.
Okay, and you need the data in that table to be linked to the data in the account table?
Um, Confused. So what I just want is like the information to get updated somehow, um, whenever it gets updated in corporate directory on the static form. But I know there's no
Okay.
way to do it just like by itself. So that's why I created like an update button. So like updating accounts pretty much. If those accounts are already in decisions, for example, and then if you, for example, you search your name and then you promote yourself, but next
Mhm.
day it should be updated on the form whenever you click that update button.
Okay, and
Mhm.
so do you have like an email address or account ID saved in your custom data type?
Yes, it's a record ID, how I'm pulling the data.
Okay, and so you could just fetch from the account for those properties instead of making them static in your data type. Like if those like manager and department and whatever
Mhm.
other properties on the account show up,
Mhm.
like right now, so the form is like it's when so you have like a process, you have a right click action on your process folder that says like update.
Yes.
I can go and I can just edit the data in that process folder's data.
Oh, we can't edit it. It has to be just a view form. And then you just have to have only button update. You can't, the business user don't want us to like edit anything.
See, I would confirm which of those fields are on the account today.
hmm
And if that's the case, you could modify that flow. Like, are people typing those values in?
Yes, the search an employee. Well, it's just you search an employee name, for example, the
Mhm.
search my name, Manal, and then their business segment, business region code, and everything populates.
Mhm. Okay. And you want those to be updated.
Yes, if, for
I
example, their
see.
business unit changes or they get
Mhm.
promoted.
If yeah, I mean, it sounds like you don't need that data in your process folder, but if you do, you could just make a scheduled job, right? That runs and it
Mhm.
looks at the account table. And so it fetches from your flow execution extension data by the account
Mhm.
ID. Go fetches an account, sees if you have one of those in your flow execution extension data. If you do, it compares properties A, B, C to see if there's any difference. And if there is, it makes an update and moves on.
Gotcha.
That should be
Mhm.
possible.
Do you have an example online? Because I searched under projects and I was able to get one of them, but that's kind of a little different. I think it's called transaction data flow.
Well, here,
The
if I
schedule flow.
created
Mhm.
a user, so let me create I mean, it doesn't sound like you should have this data in this table at all. I think is real, one of the bigger change maybe, but this is like
Yeah, I don't have anything in the flow execution. I'm just getting everything from the corporate directory. And here I just save like the employee name info, and then I'm getting the data from corporate directory. Yeah, like that.
automatically.
Yes. As soon as the employee name is searched, it populates them. For example, if I search Manal, it shows Manal.
Well, you could just have those fields instead of it making a call in the parent flow, you could just kind of like that example I did with the drop-down list a minute ago. You could just have those fields get populated by a data flow that gets called when the form loads instead of when the process is launched.
Gotcha. And then I will have to have like a sub dialog button too, like similar to.
No, like you could just imagine
Mhm.
if I go back to here and
Gotcha.
let me come into my flow. Like imagine, so let's I'm I'm gonna put a text box here.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put it here, and I'm going to run an active form flow. That's right. So I'm gonna add a new active form flow. I'm going to set it to run at startup. This will be
Okay.
called load. I'm gonna say load first name. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fetch accounts right now because my thing's in a bad state. I'm gonna just assume let's assume make believe time. I'm gonna use a raw SQL step because my local's in a bad state, but assume I'm
Okay.
using a fetch entity step on type account.
Fetch entities. Okay.
And I'm just gonna run a quick query. Entity account equals.
Quick question. Will it not be just run whenever you actually click on add employee, or will it like run every single time?
This would run every time the form is opened by someone.
Okay, even if it's like a user action?
Yeah, but it doesn't, this would fetch, this is gonna make a live call to the database every
Mhm.
time someone opens this form.
Okay.
But this saves you from needing to save any of that data off and then update it later. Because
Gotcha.
that data, you want that data. Now this might be you might make a live call to the Active Directory server here still. Like
Mhm.
if you're doing that already, you could do that in a data flow. Form rules, set control value. So form data, text box. My text. It's not showing up. Oh, because I don't have a data. Value, and I'm going to edit this, and I'm just going to take the result. Like, let's assume this is you taking
So if I have like multiple fields, I have to get for each set control value for each field.
yeah, right. You could run one flow with multiple set control values. If you're on 7 or newer, I think if you guys are on 6, you need to write, you have a data flow that does this, and it'd be slightly different, but there should be any number of examples in projects
Mhm.
for using a data flow data repeater, updating a checkbox using a data flow. This would be somewhat similar.
Oh, okay, so I just create data rather than in version 7 is set control value.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're on 6 or earlier, you won't have this active form flow piece. Let me just see if this runs. So let me say, if I run this, let's run. Okay, so there's no first name,
Mhm.
and I'm signed in as admin. So let me go security accounts. And I'm going to add a first name for admin.
Okay.
Called admin. Okay, and if I run this again, data. Oh no, I'm signed in as myself. Sorry, 1 second. Let me edit my account then. Set a first name. run this, run there, and there's Will. And so you're just letting, you don't care that you don't want to store this data in your database at all. You just want to have it fetch from the corporate directory whenever this form is loaded. Like you save the email address or the account ID, and then you can use those to make a fetch into a local database like I'm doing here, or to your Active Directory server and return the actual data. That will prevent you from needing to add an update button. That data will be called when the form is opened live. So if it's
Gotcha.
updated, it'll show here.
For example, if your name changes to, just for example, if it changes to William, and if, how will it be updated up here? So tomorrow, if your name changed to William,
Yeah.
and if I go to update fields,
Now I just changed it to William on the other screen.
gotcha. But that's only happens when you do, like, you open the form, but it can't happen on the end user action step, right?
You want it to be? You want a user to have to click update manually?
I don't. No, I do not. So just like use this active form flow, but on decision version 6, we don't have that active form flow.
But you could use this document here and then
Okay.
just updating a checkbox using a data flow. But you'd make a fetch in a flow like this.
Okay.
And this one shows you updating multiple. This is only one control. This is kind of a nonsense control, I guess, actually. Using a form to look up accounts. No. But you can use a data flow to do the same thing. You can have a data flow run and pass in values to a form control, not in the parent flow, and then they be saved forever, but at runtime.
At runtime. Gotcha.
So like if that data is informational on this form and it's not, it doesn't need to be saved in this data structure, then make the call live, and then you don't have to worry about how to keep it in sync ever. You can have the dynamic elements on the form call that data at runtime.
Gotcha. And that will be on the form, right? Like you said, by using the data flows.
Yeah, correct. In fact, that data, this wouldn't live anywhere. Like, let's assume there was a setup process folder and there was a whole process here. This value doesn't live anywhere in that process. It just is shown when a user opens the form.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, you bet. Nancy's question, can I do the same type of thing where I fetch information and display some details, but within a data repeater row? Yeah, absolutely. There's you can use a active form flow or a data flow to populate a data repeater list in the same way you can populate a drop-down list or any other type of list control. You just need to make sure you have built a data repeater for the type of that list, whatever that list type is.
So does my data repeater need to have those fields? Even though I'm not saving the fields? That's what I'm struggling on.
Say that again?
Does the data repeater, so the example, just as an example, if say an email was entered and I just wanted to display the name, so I'm keeping the email in the data repeater. And then if I just wanted to display the first and last name from the account information, do I need to, in the data repeater, put the first and last name fields?
Your audio is breaking up a bit for me, Nancy. I'm sorry. That's better.
Okay, all right. So if I had in a data repeater an email address, and then if I just wanted to display the first and last name from an account, do I need to have the first and the last name also in the data repeater?
Yeah, you have to design a data repeater like it's a mini form.
Okay.
And so, yes, you absolutely could. We should have some good docs around how to do that. You have to build a data repeater. The data repeater actually has a type, an object associated with it.
Yeah, I guess
So,
does it have to have all, even though I don't want to store the first and last name in the data repeater, does it
Mhm.
have to have a field for first and last name for it to show up in the data repeater form?
no, I mean, if you want it, you don't have to add every field on a data type to the data repeater. You can only
Okay.
add the fields that you care about to the data repeater, if that's the question you're asking.
And then, okay, I guess I'll just have to, I haven't been successful at getting another field on the data repeater.
What you want to do is, oops, sorry, let me click form here. Let me create a data repeater. So I'm going to add a repeater for that help text message type we just created here. Help message manager. And then I'm going to put a label here to just to show value. And I'm going to change text from data name. And as soon as I do that, I'll get this pick from data. And if I click pick from data and expand form data, it's going to give me all the properties in that data type that I can add to.
Right.
So if I put help text there, I can have help text show as a label. Or if I do the same thing with a text box, pick from data, help text, I can show help text in a text box for me as well.
Okay.
And I do that same thing for multiple properties.
But the only thing you can select though in there is something that's already in the data repeater. So if that, say, if you were adding in a value of, let's say, an email address, and you wanted to then just display the first and last name associated to that email address. So you might add like, here's one email address I'm basically attaching to this ticket. There's another email address that I'm attaching to this ticket.
Sure.
So how would I get the first and last name, which I'm not storing in the data repeater, to display?
So you still have to add, well, no, then what you could do is you would still need to have those as properties on the data type, even though you don't use them for anything.
Okay, on the data repeater, I would need to have this. Okay.
On your data type, add first name, last name. You just know those are only for the data repeater object itself. Or if you want to keep that object clean, you could create a flow structure or a separate data, like a flow structure. And then you could do like list mapping to and from to make those types different. But like probably what you would do is add a first name property and a last name property, and you'd put them as labels with this text from data name. And then you would select first name and last name. And then, or you might do, like you can do, I don't want to do that. It's easier with a text box. You could also just run an active form flow to populate a text box, but it has to be one of the properties. It still has to be one of the properties. Yeah, so you would add those properties to that data type, even if you don't use them for anything else, or use a separate data type.
Okay, that's kind of where I was thinking I had to go. So, okay, that helps.
Okay. Anybody else got any other questions for us today? Q&A. Okay, is that everything? Looks like that's everything for today. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.